Hello, welcome again to the Studies in Theatre course on MOOC. We are into lecture number 3. In previous 2 lectures, you have studied with me a little bit about the history of theatre, how this word theatre has developed, how this has been going on, and how it may go into future. Today, we are going to look at the different genres that are in theatre because like literature and like several other disciplines in arts and humanities, theatre is also full of so many aspects, so many genres, and it is enriching itself day by day that it becomes very important for us to have a look at these genres. Now, friends, I must also mention the word genres or it may confuse sometimes when we study it from a literary perspective. Because many a times literature studies is approached, becomes the center from where we take up our studies in theatre. We are guided by literary text to watch theatre. And there is a conditioning in our mind which is based on our education in literature studies, and that conditioning somehow makes us study theatre also from that perspective. That is helpful, but sometimes it needs a little modification. And for that purpose, I am trying to explain you that we can create genres in theatre by 2 methods, or we can assess through 2 methods. One is from the perspective of text, and the second is from the perspective of the action. What does that mean? It means that when we are looking at a text, it may appear to be a text of a serious kind, it may appear to be of a comic kind, it may be mix of two, and that's how we categorize it according to tragedy, comedy, and what are the requirements. Similarly, there is another method, and that is how we perform it, how we enact it. And that also is an important aspect. Now, Indian tradition and Greek tradition both have their own styles of creating genres or studying them or defining them and approaching them for academic purpose as well as for practical purpose. If we look at Aristotle, Aristotle's poetics prepares us for writing plays of a kind. And when we look at Bharat Muni's Natyashastra, then we find that it prepares us to perform plays in different kind. So I am trying to take forward my discussion with the help of these both these methods. They may it's the combination of these 2 methods that is the best. We need not keep them in isolation from each other because it helps us understanding the spectrum of theatre and its genres in a much better sense. So here we are looking at these theatrical genres, which these genres categorizes plays and performances by thematic content, narrative structure, and intended emotional response. The response that you are trying to perform and the response that you are trying to create, as well as the response that you are trying to see among the audience. So all these 3 dimensions become the premise for categorizing the different theatre genres. Genre conventions set expectations for both writers and audiences regarding the nature of a dramatic work. Dramatic literature genres are defined by plot and mood. Tragedy portrays human suffering leading to catharsis, while comedy aims to generate with lighter tones and happy resolutions. So this is how the writing literature of theatre defines these moods. Now, subgenres and hybrids like tragicomedy blend elements of tragedy and comedy in varying proportions are also important. Genre categories inform audiences about the narrative type and the level of intellectual and emotional engagement required. Theatre genres evolve, shaped by historical traditions and cultural shifts, as well as audiences' expectations. So, this is the premise that I already shared. Now we look at the Navarasas in Bharat Muni's Natyashastra. This is because this particular paradigm in Bharat Muni's Natyashastra makes us understand the categories of plays, the categories which are visible in theatre, the genres. So, Natyashastra encompasses various aspects of theatre, including Navarasas. Navarasas is one of the aspects of Natyashastra, and it is relevant for today's discussion, so I am taking this further. So, these are 9 fundamental emotions or sentiments depicted in Natyashastra, as we discussed in the previous lecture also. They form the foundation of dramatic expression in Indian classical theatre. This shlok is very important from Natyashastra. Rodram bhayam rodrani cha viryam karunyam charuna tathaiv cha hasyam bibhatsam rodram cha shringaram dasham vyavasthitam. So it means that Bharat Muni is enumerating the different kinds of emotions or sentiments or moods which are the vital elements of performance in theatre in Indian tradition. These are key concepts. So what do they mean? Shringar, romance, which means love, attractiveness. So when we are talking about beauty, nice mood, love, affection, attractiveness, that is the feeling of Shringar. Hasyam, when we are smiling, when we are laughing, there's mirth, there's laughter, there's comedy, that is hasyam. Then Rodram, this fury, that is when there is a kind of a fury, the anger, that is when you are looking at somebody, you're feeling angry, that is fury. And then Karunyam, compassion, when you are compassionate to someone, when you are understanding somebody's feelings, when you have empathy in your face, in your body language, that is Karunyam. Mercy is also one of its part and its face. Then Bhibhatsam, when there is something very disgustful, when you are disgusted, you feel aversion with it, that is Bhibhatsam. It's when you don't just want to look at something or feel something or go through an expression of that kind. So that is Bhibhats, disgust. You are disgusted with something. Then Bhayanakam, horror, terror. It's when there is this fear, when there is something very terrifying, when there is something very horrific. And there's fear in the expression, in the eyes, and in the environment. Then Veer, when there is this feeling of heroicness, when there is heroism, there's this feeling of, proud, your chest fills with a sense of pride, and there's this, greatness, grandeur, that is heroic, that is Veer. Adbhutam, wonder, amazement, when you are amazed at something, when you are in wonder of something, when there is something in front of you, and as if you have come across something really magnificent, that is Adbhut. Then Shantam, peace or tranquility, when there is quiet, when there is tranquility, everything is full of shanti. That is this rasa. So there have been debates that shantam or the tranquility has been added. It was not present in the original text. But now we have these emotions, these vital feelings, and these are very crucial elements of performance, and they also help us in understanding different theatres, different aspects of theatre. Then you have Aristotle's Poetics, and we are very much aware of it because it's very popular, and most of the literature studies programs it is prescribed, so you know about it. It's a foundational work in Western theatre theory, and he discusses the concepts of tragedy and comedy as essential elements of theatre. Tragedy in his poetics can be defined as a form of drama that evokes fear and pity in the audience. Elements of tragedy include a protagonist's downfall and a cathartic effect. And a very good example of this is Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Now, you must keep this in mind that tragedy, according to Aristotle, is some kind of a grand story of a grand character, a protagonist who has a potential. And when there is what is tragic, it's not the death that is tragic, but it's the loss of that great potential in that protagonist that makes it tragic. And it is generally a person of a very high caliber, promising talents, who goes wasted in the journey of the plot. And that leaves us with a tragic moment, with a feeling of sadness at the end, and that is why it becomes a tragedy. Comedy in Aristotle's poetics can be defined as a genre that aims to amuse and entertain. So there is happy environment, there is lovely environment, there is this light approach towards the problem solutions. And even though there may be some serious problems, but those problems are resolved with some kind of happy-go-lucky moments, confusions, etc., humorous situations, wordplay, satire. And Lysistrata by Aristophanes is a very important point of departure for comedy, so I have mentioned it here. And you can see in the two pictures that are there. In one picture, it's that grandeur, that seriousness of Oedipus Rex is captured, and in the second one, there is this pink costume of the character that changes the whole persona, and you can understand that this is comedy. So, as I was telling you about the different aspects of tragedy, it is a genre that portrays the downfall or suffering of a protagonist, often due to a fatal flaw or external circumstances. Now, what do we understand by fatal flaw? That means that there is some kind of flaw in a very good person, and that flaw becomes so powerful in the wake of certain situation in the play. Now, carrying on further from Aristotle's poetics, we look at tragedy. Now, what is tragedy? It has already been pointed out. But let us look at tragedy in different aspects. It is a genre that portrays the downfall or suffering of a protagonist. I already indicated that, I shared that. And fatal flaw or external circumstances both are responsible for that. Now, tragedy is a genre that portrays the downfall or suffering of a protagonist, often due to a fatal flaw or external circumstances. Now, what does this mean? It means that the protagonists in tragic plays are those people who are great, who are grand, and who have a lot of potential to grow in their life and to impact the lives of others. But what happens is that due to their own flaw, which is present in them, or due to some circumstances, they lose the situation. They are not able to have control over their own nature, their own actions, and that lead to some kind of misfortunes. These misfortunes attract negativity, it leads to downfall, and it leads to ultimately waste of their potential. We can have a look at so many characters in different kinds of plays which have this aspect. For example, King Lear, for example, Macbeth, for example, Hamlet. Now, what happens in Hamlet? Hamlet is a prince and he has to someday become king. Now, what are the qualities of a king? A king has to be decisive. A king has to take decisions. A king is a good soul. A king has to take care of his people. Now, many of these qualities are present in Hamlet. But there is one problem that is present in Hamlet, and that is procrastination. He is not able to take decision to convert his ideas into action. He keeps postponing the decision, the final action. And that delay, that procrastination, starts converting into a burden on his shoulders. He starts transforming into a wretched soul who starts losing one after the other different kinds of things. He loses his lady love, Ophelia. He, he starts feeling low, depressed. He is most of the time talking to himself. That's why there are so many beautiful soliloquies in this play, monologues in this play. And ultimately, when he does act, it is too late for him to act. And the impact of his action is not what it should have been. Similarly, in the story of Macbeth, what we see when Macbeth enters after his triumph, he is a very powerful warrior. He is brave. He is a strong man. He has attraction. He has the charm of personality that a royal person must have. But what he starts doing is that he starts dreaming for something which is not his. His ambition starts overruling his own actions. And this ambitious nature converts into overambition, which is supported by his wife's ambition also. And he takes some wrong decisions, so much so that he also kills the king. And that murder becomes too much of a burden for him to bear, and he starts transforming into a very, very negative kind of a soul, negative kind of a person. And what we see at the end, the death of Macbeth is just something that is destined to happen because the way he was going on. When we look at another play like Othello, what we see in Othello is that Othello is a promising man, full of so many qualities in the opening scenes of opening act when he comes on the stage. But gradually, his suspicious nature, his gullible nature, is manipulated by people around him, people like Iago, who conditions him through his very cunning words against his own wife, believing that she is not faithful. And this kind of misbelief, this starts taking a toll on his mental health, and he becomes negative person. He is no more the person that is introduced in the beginning, and by the time the play ends, whatever happens is very much expected. It's important to understand that tragedy is not just the death that takes place at the end. It's the sense of loss in the wrong actions that the protagonist starts taking because of the tragic flaw and because of the circumstances that starts hurting the audiences, that starts the audience to participate emotionally and psychologically in the play, and they become glued to the development and evolution of the character and plot. And by the time the play ends, they are also same in the terms of feeling. They feel what has happened on the stage is something really sad. It could have been better if the character had not gone wrong. Something better could have been done in life. So this loss, this sense of loss, is the greatest achievement of tragedy. And obviously, when somebody is writing a tragedy, that person has to keep this in mind. But it's even more important for somebody who's directing this or enacting a tragic character, that this sense of loss has to be sustained throughout the play in order to make that tragic feeling, that sense of loss, a kind of a very significant connection between the audience and the action that is happening on the stage. Oedipus Rex is a very good example of uh, tragedy in which Oedipus loses everything because of so many tragic circumstances. And there are so many plays. These tragedies have inspired cinema, plays, and TV serials and other kinds of performance productions. But we must also understand that tragedy is an entire field in which various emotions can be shared and combined. The emotions that we saw in Bharat Muni's Natyashastra, that says that gives us those basic Navarasas, but those can be used in different combination in order to heighten the impact of tragedy. Now we move on to the discussion of comedy. Comedy is characterized by humor, wit, and a light-hearted tone. It often explores the absurdities and ironies of human nature and social convention. See, there are two ways of looking at life or the situations in life. One is to laugh, the other is to become sad and to cry and to feel lost. Now, if we choose the first method, then that method inspires us to to write comedy, to perform comedy, and it's something very, very difficult to be done because it's not just the body language that makes something comic. It's not just the dialogues that make something comics. It's not just the characters that make things comic. It's the it's everything that makes that creates comedy, and it is a combination of, again I will refer to Navarasas, again so many rasas in Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. All those combined, many of them combined rather, to create an atmosphere of comedy, to lighten the burden of sorrows, to make people laugh, to make people smile. So, the aim of comedy is to entertain and provoke laughter. And it's not easy to make somebody laugh because timing has to be perfect when we are performing a comedy. And dialogue delivery has to be of a certain kind. It also offers social commentary and moral lessons at times. So, subgenres of comedy can include farce, romantic comedy, satire, and slapstick humor. William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream is a very good example of comedy because this play explores love, mistaken identity, supernatural intervention in a light-hearted atmosphere, in a humorous atmosphere. And by the time the play ends, everything is resolved. The conflict resolution has taken place, but the conflict resolution has taken place through a light-hearted path, not the path of sense of loss. There is loss sometimes in comedy also, but that loss is does not appear to be very serious by the time the play ends. Then we have further examples like Harishchandra play by Bhash, a it's an ancient playwright, Sanskrit playwright who has written a lot of plays. Not all his work has survived, but this play is known for being a very good example of comedy. The life of Harishchandra, which is known from various other mythological sources, was a tough life, was a difficult life. But in this particular play, King Harishchandra's life has been satirized by highlighting his flaws and follies through humor. So, what I said in the beginning was that it is not the choice of subject that decides that what is going to be tragic or comic. It's how we treat it, and in that how it becomes important to use a combination of emotions which are present in Bharat Muni's Navarasa theory. Then another example is Khichdi by Aga Hashr Kashmiri. Khichdi is a classic comedy. It's a play of Parsi theatre tradition or in India, and it is a farcical comedy that revolves around mistaken identities, misunderstandings, and humorous situations. Then we move on to another genre, and this is a genre where tragedy and comedy both combine, and it's a perfect example of how emotions are blended in a performance, in a theater production. It's tragedy and comedy both are present, as it is telling you with its title. And Shakespeare's The Tempest is a very good example, because on one hand you have the story of Prospero, who's grappling with serious themes of betrayal and exile, and on the other hand you have characters like Caliban, Miranda, and Ferdinand, whose stories and whose lives add comedic element, lighter element, because they are engaging with the audience in a nuanced way. They are making audience laugh. They provide emotional range of different kind, and therefore do not let the entire play tilt on the side of comedy or tragedy. Rather, it becomes a blend of both these genres. Therefore, it is called as tragicomedy. Then we have comedy of humor and comedy of manner. So, comedy of humor and comedy of manner both are subgenres which are very much specifically studied in literature when we are studying drama. But it's slightly tricky to understand it when you are performing it. But if, as I said, if we look at this basic understanding that there are so many things which are involved in creating a particular mood on stage, then we can understand that it's the humor of our own body, our own fluids also become significant in doing a certain action on the stage. So, comedy of humor or humors focuses on exaggerated personality traits of human beings, and these personality traits, as has been postulated by theorists, is because of the body humors, the fluids that decide our personality type. And which means that we will expect a certain kind of temperament, a certain kind of action, or a certain kind of reaction from people of a certain kind. So this is based on personality types. Then comedy of manner explores societal norms and societal interactions. So this is another genre, because in this, it's the society's setting, the norms, the interactions, the situations, the subcultures, they become important to create comic relief and to find things funny, amusing. And this is again, you can see that human, when you are performing a comedy of manner, you can bring in the elements of comedy of humor as well. Or if you are performing a comedy of humor, you can bring in the elements of comedy of manner, because although we can create very specific kind of performances as well, but what is advisable in theater to entertain the audience, what we offer on stage is generally the blend of various kinds of premises. So an example for these two genres are The Misanthrope by Molière, French playwright. His play is a wonderful example of comedy of manner, and The Alchemist by Ben Jonson for comedy of humor. And I've provided you very representative pictures to understand the environment and mood. You can see that they do not definitely look funny or comic, but there is a sense of relief or joy in the portrayal, in which the characters you can see are standing or talking to each other. Then we have, please cut this, thank you. We have romances as genre in theatre. Romances are dramatic works that often revolve around love, adventure, and magic. And you can see this picture tells you a very good example of Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a play full of romance, love, sense of wonder. Then history plays are also significant, and they make a genre. Histories are plays that depict historical events, figures, or legends. They provide insight into the past and explore themes of power, ambition, and leadership. A very good example is present in the form of King William Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1. This is a very good history play. So all in all, these are some genres that I have discussed with you today. in this lecture. There are more genres that I will cover in my next lecture. See you in the next lecture. Thank you very much.